Hey everyone, you're listening to the 805 Uncensored. We're a show on the Anti-Capitalist Podcast Network. This show covers music, news, politics, and more, which is why we call ourselves Uncensored. There are no limits. So welcome, follow us on your podcast and social media platforms of choice. This is part two of panel number 19. We're going to be discussing Venezuela, Greenland, U.S. imperialism, and the Middle East, and a few other topics related to that. So thanks again for listening in. We do have a couple of new faces on this panel, so I will have them do introductions. We'll start with you, Shirin.
Hi guys, Shirin. I'm
Sure.
Iranian immigrant. I host Freedom Hour Iran weekly, and Jordan's been kind enough to have me come in a couple times and thankfully be a part of the conversation because it's hard to have the English version of the conversation really these days. So I'm really thankful that you guys are here. Thank you.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. Thank you for being here. Marianne?
Aku, think I was on one of your shows before, but we do have a lot of conversations in between about all things we dislike about the so-called U.S. Yeah, so I mean, all important conversations, but right, these conversations oftentimes dominate um, like friendships, relationships, just in everything we do because we are living and experiencing it. And someone like, that I am Chumash, right? This is an occupied area. And we've been living this for centuries. Before I was born, I was born into it. So it's really hard to listen to any political figures talk about what they would like to do or want to change. Well, it's just, they just want to take the edge off, but they don't want to do much more than that.
Well said. Yeah, we have a lot of conversations that are awesome.
So sometimes I'm cussing a lot, so I'll try to not too much
I
in
mean,
here, but it's become a big part of my vocabulary lately.
no problem with cussing. Uncensored here. And I think that's all the newbies. Yeah. So, the first thing that I want to do, just like last time, is we'll dive into opening statements. Actually, real quick before that, I want to talk about the millionaire mishaps, and then we'll do opening statements. So, millionaire mishaps is a new segment by the Anti-Capitalist Podcast Network where we talk about comedic and non-comedic deaths of the ruling class. So, millionaires, billionaires, etc. Pretty much all the villains. So this edition is Prince William's billionaire pal Sanjay Kapoor, dead at 53 after swallowing a bee during a polo match. Yeah, so another one bites the dust.
It's a really bougie way to go during a polo match.
I thought that was
So
like
ironic.
cherry on top. Yeah, so okay, before everybody talks about opening statements, I just wanted to share the dichotomy of white women. I woke up to this the other day on Threads and thought this was hilarious. So there's a white woman, she says, "Can white people join the Black Panthers? I think we're ready." And then another white woman responds and says, "White woman here, this is colonizer thinking. We do not need to be invading their spaces any more than we already have. Organize your own group if you're so ready. I'd encourage you to think long and hard about whether or not you're actually willing to shut up and follow the lead direction of black and brown people. This requires you to decenter yourself in your whiteness on a consistent basis. The work that's required to decolonize your mind never stops. It's ongoing because you'll always be white." So I just thought that was wonderful. The dichotomy there, my God, like just the differences there. But yeah, I'll leave it open to the panel now for opening statements. It can be related to Venezuela, Greenland, current events, or really just anything you want to share before we get started.
Just in relation to the dichotomy of white women, I'm working on this book, Everything You Already Know About Your Own Racism and How to Do Better, by Regina Jackson and Sarah. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to pronounce it correctly. I hope I am. But yeah, it's really good. So I recommend that to my fellow white women.
Yeah, thanks for that recommendation. So like I said, we'll just leave it open to the floor. Go for it, Marianne.
I guess I'll, since you're talking about white women, yesterday here in Kentucky, we had the Women's March, which we have never participated in, only because when we tried to join in, get on their board to give them some ideas that could better the march, because I do believe they could make it better. The guy who is their president or who runs it is an older white man, and didn't want us to have a role in saying, didn't want anything too radical. As you know, I fucking hate that word radical, because I'm like, there's nothing radical about this. But so they pick and choose who they want, and you see all these new people that are running, and like everybody's just white, and it's so hard, because it's like, what real change is going to come from that? But I also understand that a lot of our own people are just, it's so hard to digest and play that role, to get into that role. It's almost, you sacrifice a lot mentally and emotionally. So I like that they always put this women's march, but we call it the white women's march, because they're not really inclusive. They like to say they are, but, and that's another conversation for another time, but it needs to be had already as women, and as people that are also mixed. A lot of times people pick, if they're part white, they will pick them before they will pick another person, because they can relate to them, and it's easier to talk to them than it would be somebody else with a different lived experience. I know people don't agree with that, but I'm going to be on my soapbox about that for the rest of my life.
That's the kind of reform they try to sell you, by the way. It's just another old white dude that's in charge, but it's repackaged as, something different. And that's why reform just makes me cringe.
I just wanted to share this quick meme that says, "We hear you, we see you. Now get in the unmarked van."
That's how I feel about the language of, like, peaceful demonstrators, especially with everything going on with Iran. You hear the people that are actually speaking on it, like, Trump or whatever, and he's like, oh, we're support the peaceful demonstrators in Iran. Like, you mean the rioters? Oh, I'm sorry, saying that they're rioting and actually fighting back would acknowledge to people over here that you can do that, and we wouldn't want that.
And
The language is, ooh.
the Trump administration and the Iranian regime would have a lot in common when it comes to crushing protesters.
I feel like it's a playbook. It's a playbook. Oh, well, that worked over there. Just taking casual little notes over here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just whenever it's at your imperial geopolitical convenience.
And you throw a couple of socialist, communist,
Is
whatever language in there. Yeah. And people get so worked up. And all of a sudden, here we are. And the left, it's very interesting. Like you're saying, the woman that's like, hey, I want to be part of the Black Panthers versus the other part of the conversation right now. And Jordan and I touched on it very, very, very lightly, but you have a lot of people that are very conflicted ethically and morally on who to support. And, it's whomever is being oppressed. It doesn't matter who the oppressor is. I don't understand why all of a sudden we're playing like, enemy of my whatever, enemy of my enemy is my friend, which is absolutely ridiculous in terms of government, but whatever.
I agree with all of that.
My
Get a
soapbox.
little tambourine over here.
In relation to that, like, it's funny too, because it kind of shows how little white people know about their own history in relation to any type of activism too, which I know is purposeful, just like any other activist movement. But that's also why I'm reading about the Weather Undergrad too.
Mm.
I got some books on them, so that's something I'm excited to learn about more, because I didn't know much about that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Sojourner Truth, specifically her speech about anti-woman, and she's knocking white women specifically in that speech, and it's great.
Yeah, I think it's interesting the number of people that wouldn't be able to tell you that, for example, Pride started as a riot or whatever it is in our history. It's just been, the language has been so, I guess, bleached over time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, MLK Day is coming up, and that's a perfect example. It's like every single year, the white liberals just rally around MLK when they would have absolutely condemned him if he was alive today. Because, like you said, Marianne, he's too radical.
The other day, there was a
the worst part is that I know who she is. It was a white woman that had considered running for office in Simi Valley a couple years back. She was interested in running for school board, despite the fact that she's like insufferable and can't maintain like interpersonal relationships. I don't know why she thought she would be successful at running for office, but anyways, so she gave a speech to the Simi Valley City Council about an event that the Cultural Center is having for MLK Day. And she's like, it has nothing to do with politics. It's just all about peace and Martin Luther King Jr.'s image of peace. And she used the word peace probably like 20 times. She used it like every time she said his name, she said the word peace like 3 times relative to whatever his name was in that sentence. And I was so offended hearing her speak because I was like, first of all, you have no understanding of Martin Luther King Jr. Like, dude was literally like had a doctorate and was a radical socialist who believed in the downfall of like the US empire and imperialism worldwide. So he was not like a pacifist, if that's like how you're trying to make him sound. And I was so livid. I walked up to her afterwards and I tried telling her, and she was so excited to see me because she recognized me. So I walk up and I'm like, oh my God, hey. And she's like, oh my God, girl, how are you? And I was like, yeah, not well after that like super racist speech. Like that was just really inappropriate. Like, I can't believe that you would say something so offensive. And her whole face dropped. And she was just like, oh my God. Like she put her hand up to my face to like tell me to stop talking and was like, okay. And so she was like kind of like pushing me out of the vicinity. So I was just like, so I just whispered in her ear as I walked away. She's like, just want to let you know it's super racist, like super racist. And she was like, well, thanks for letting me know. And I was like, yeah, I got you anytime.
You know, she was super proud of herself after that speech too.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? The minute you try to let them know they've said something that's harmful, or it could be, God forbid, that they're wrong, like they blow up and they have a big issue. And then all of a sudden you're violent and you're attacking them. I'm like, no, this is anger and frustration. Like violence is totally different. Like, let's not mix the two. But if you want to see what violence is, like, you know, sometimes I'm at the point where I'm ready just to take it there because I am so frustrated and angry with all these people because they don't listen. And then they just ignore you, water everything down, gaslight you. It's and then expect you to still always just be welcoming and happy to see them, and it's so difficult. I
I
have
know
to take my break.
we need to be dishing it the fuck back. Like ICE agents, why were they there? Why were they dressed like that? They shouldn't be out late at night. Don't they know
That's
it's dangerous?
No, I definitely am a big proponent of when it push comes to shove, you shove back. And at some point, it's the whole peaceful thing is only going to go so far. And the sooner the better that people realize that it's just a, they're just trying to quell the conversation. And that's why I'm really frustrated with a lot of protests. And a lot of Iranians have been taken to the streets. I think like 100K came out in Toronto yesterday. Insane, amazing. But what has that changed in the past X number of years? All the politicians that need to know about it, and they're talking about it, but they're having a completely different conversation than what the people are asking for again. But they're checking it, they're checking it off their list. We said something or whatever.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's well said. But I just want to let you know that your mic was a little bit fuzzy.
Sorry
I
about
also,
that. I'll get a new one in a moment.
I also wanted to say like another just like whitewashed lie is there's this notion of a false like antagonistic relationship between Malcolm X and MLK. They only actually met one time, and they did not disagree, by the way. It wasn't like one was all about peace and white liberalism and the other one was radical. No, fuck no. They were aligned.
100%. I'm pretty sure as soon as MLK actually started sharing his like more extreme socialist beliefs is when they really started, you know, following him around. They didn't like that at all.
No, and the FBI murdered him with
Yeah, yeah.
the letter and all
Yep.
the relationships he had with women.
And yeah,
Let your,
tried their best to annihilate his character. Yeah.
they let the performative stuff go, we'll let you protest until, and then that's when they come in and So until we're pacified, we're okay. But anything past that,
Whoa, wait a second. Hang on. You're starting to threaten the status quo there.
hey now.
Don't get carried away. Um, anything else before we dive into the immediate topics?
You already have us all worked up here.
Well, that was the point, so I'm glad. Hey, AngelMarie, by the way. Thanks for joining. Hi. Okay, then,
You
are
guys.
you guys ready to start talking about the Imperial Boomerang? Another nice light topic. Okay, so
Yeah.
part of the panel, we're going to be talking about Venezuela, Greenland, and the Imperial Boomerang. So I'll read the Imperial Boomerang thesis, which states the Imperial Boomerang, or Foucault's boomerang, is the thesis that governments develop repressive techniques to control colonial territories, will eventually deploy those same techniques domestically against their own citizens. So at first, when I read that, I was like, this is true and a good analysis, but also I thought it failed to recognize centuries of pre-existing colonial violence in the United States, or so-called United States, that was already there. So I thought that at first, but then I saw that he actually extended on this theory. So I wanted to see your guys' responses to this. So it says, well, colonization with its techniques and its political and jurisdictional weapons obviously transported European models to other continents. It also had a considerable boomerang effect on the mechanisms of power in the West and on the apparatuses, institutions, and techniques of power. A whole series of colonial models was brought back to the West, and the result was the West could practice something resembling colonization or an internal colonialism on itself. So basically, what are your thoughts on the imperial boomerang as it relates to Venezuela, U.S. militarism, and ICE raids? I know you guys have thoughts on this.
Jordan, I was going to ask, do you mind reading those last two sentences again, please?
Yes. A whole series of colonial models was brought back to the West, and the result was that the West could practice something resembling colonization or an internal colonialism on itself. Kaitlyn Sage?
I was actually gonna ask who wrote that.
This is Michael Foucault.
That dude. He's French, right?
I think so, yeah.
Right. That doesn't matter. But yeah, I think that's pretty good way, I think, to describe a lot of the things that are happening. I do think a lot of things that are happening in the world are the result of like American and I don't know, CIA foreign involvement and whatnot.
Mm.
Yeah, that's my opinion. I don't know.
AngelMarie?
Thank you. Hearing that, some of my first thoughts, like what the United States government does to other nations is what it will do to like its own nation, vice versa. When I think about that back and forth dynamic, the first thing that came to my mind is the Emancipation Proclamation. When we think about how the fake illusion abolishment of slavery, really what it was a transfer of slave labor from one place to another, not that it disappeared. And what that looked like here within America is that unpaid labor switched from plantations to the prison industrial complex. But the majority of enslaved labor that upholds the American economy didn't disappear. Our government just moved it to Latin America. So it really shows like how our own models really are like what we're enforcing onto other nations and vice versa. That was like the first thing that came to my mind.
If I could add something to that, is that not only did they move it to Latin America, but it was also always in Latin America to begin with. So slavery began in Latin America first and then moved up north, and they began, killing natives in droves literally in the millions the more north they moved. But there has always been a very strong relationship between like the enslaved population and the native population at any point in given time. Like, I think the fact that so many people are seeing the Black Panther movement come back in recent days, like, I think that's like speaking very loudly to the fact that, you know what I mean, there is Pan-African and Pan-Indigenous like groups working together to be able to build coalitions to defend our communities from what we're seeing now with modern day slavery and mass incarceration. And as AngelMarie pointed out, the 13th Amendment in the Constitution literally says that you like slavery is allowed as long as people are incarcerated.
Yeah, as long as you're in prison.
Exactly. And so because of that, there is no slavery was abolished. Like, we just saw it rebranded and tossed in our face. And we're seeing that now with like colorblind racism. Oh, I don't see color. Okay, well, your ancestors saw color, and therefore you benefit from the color that you exist in because of your ancestors. So you have to see color. Like, whether we would like to live in a colorblind world in a utopia future, that's not the world we live in now. And we need people to be a little bit more realistic as to how to move forward in these kinds of conversations, because when we have the white liberal or the neoliberal whitewashing of history, like with Martin Luther King Jr., for example, right? Like, they're pushing this narrative that they have a monopoly on violence and that people are not allowed to respond violently. And so that's why it's so important for groups like the Brown Berets and the Black Panthers to come back, because without that, people don't feel a sense of protection, if that makes sense. Who else is protecting our people right now? And if I can just one last little thing on while we're speaking about history, gangs in the United States were created in communities of color to defend against police brutality.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was actually just going to start talking about who ICE is targeting. They're not going into gang-ridden areas of Los Angeles for obvious reasons, because they're fucking terrified of them. Matter of fact, gangs in Los Angeles are actually starting to form solidarity to protect people against ICE raids.
Not just in Los Angeles, but across the nation. Mm-hmm. There have been ceasefires to deal with ICE. Like, the cartel are calling out ceasefires as well, so that way people can respond to the immediate need of people who are like actually really bad, which is obviously the government and state-sanctioned violence.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious to see who the enemy is.
I love people's responses also when you talk about this. I guess I'm going to just, anchor in on white women today, because we talked about the White Women's March and MLK Day tomorrow. Is like, have you talked to your council members? Have you called your senator? It's like, what is that going to do? I mean, I could write a letter to Santa Claus and I might get a better response than I would from my local, political figures. It's like, it's insanity. But they used that, the mission system, the Holocaust, that was all used. We need protection, therefore we need police. Well, now we need these ICE agents that aren't not even well trained, didn't even pass much of the background check. And are clearly, if somebody is yelling at you or calling your names, they lack the emotional maturity to even be in that position. They just react.
That's the qualification, though. They don't want emotional maturity.
Well, I mean, you would hope that they would have at least some, to at least try to project that they are this person that's going in there and trying to do the right thing. But
especially if they're gonna have fucking guns, right?
Their whole fallout is unreal. But it's like we were saying, it's nothing new to us. I mean, I've heard my grandmother, my parents talk about stuff like this in the 60s and 70s. And again, I keep saying, I never thought that I would be living through what my grandmother lived through. And she was born in 1916. She's no longer here. But why are we reliving these same stories? It is, somebody mentioned earlier, it is a playbook. They use the same tactic, every couple 20 years, so that people that are born into it or young in their 20s may not, if they were not brought up with that type of background and education within their family, then they have no understanding of how it exists and how it's perpetuated in modern times. So it sometimes takes them a lot longer to come around. And what I see, even some of my friends, which I'm really shocked about, some of them, all of a sudden life happens, they get divorced, something happens, and they become very religious when they may not have been before. And religion is just as guilty for perpetuating those stereotypes of, women or men. Nobody, you're not supposed to be a troublemaker. You're not supposed to speak out. You stay quiet. You stay in the back. You just keep voting things away. But that is not. You need more than that. And we've known this. And I think it's an amazing time to see so many people, especially youth, come together and actually stand up against what's happening and that can see what's happening. Like, we don't need to be preached to. It's blatant in our face.
I say frequently that we'll head towards we'll head to right where the regime is in Iran if we keep going this way. The little things, the little details, like taking away women's rights, going after protesters, the way the language has changed, all of a sudden having these, theocratic values muddled in somewhere, it's starting to smell very authoritarian, religious dictatorship. So I think it's very important to also note there are people that still saying, well, there are laws in place against that. That's why there's, the balance of, and they don't even know what they're saying. But I don't think people are looking at the rest of the world, or I'm not sure if it's some sort of comfort that they're trying to give themselves.
I'm
Baffled.
It is comfort. I keep people saying, like, America's the greatest. We have this freedom. I'm like, really? Do we really have freedom? You have been brainwashed into believing we're the greatest country, but we're really not. We are like literally run by pedophiles and sex abusers and narcissists, and it's embarrassing. It's so embarrassing, and I think that they are so disgusting. But even that type of criticism is, people will gasp and call you all kinds of names and basically go somewhere else. And well, no, I technically I don't have to go somewhere else. And this country was great much longer than it's been actually the country that we call now America. So, like, if you really want to talk about it, let's talk about it. But they never want to get into that conversation.
Yeah,
we helped you. We helped your people. We didn't ask you for help. We sent you no smoke signals. That's a lie.
I'm so much better off now.
It's very insulting. It really is.
I mean, the perfect example of it is literally Taliban 2.0. Like, thanks for the help, guys. It's only gotten worse. Like, who actually thinks this is helpful and not literally just the dig for resources and money in war or whatever? I just don't understand how some people are still stuck to such an old narrative despite it being so available in front of them.
Right. And I was going to add that this would be a really great time for something like the United Nations to exist and be real and working. Like, this would be a great time to have an actual United Nations. And I think, like, I want to bring that point back to, like, Venezuela and Greenland. I remember in our last episode of the podcast, we talked about, like, well, is it the oil? Is it not the oil? It is the oil, and so many other things. And there shouldn't be any doubt about that, because the template for taking over an entire community, invading a community to extract its resources for energy is as old as the tale from, like, the Harlan County coal mines over in the Appalachia here in America. We're talking like company towns where the workers in these mines for coal that powered New York, that powered our nation, weren't even being paid actual salaries. They weren't even being paid money. They were being paid like little tickets that they could use at scripts at stores that the company owned. And the company also owned all of their houses. They could cut off the water. Anytime these workers showed any sort of resistance, they would just straight up massacre them. And that happened here on our own soil. So there should be no question about whether or not, like, there's that exact same type of invasion onto a community and their sovereignty happening in Venezuela. And what is the UN doing about it? Nothing, because the United States runs the United Nations. And we can take that back to Greenland. And the fact that Greenland is such a big topic about sovereignty and, like, a nation's right to run itself, that wasn't really, like, that same kind of conversation we were seeing around Palestine. So it really shows, like, how the attention is being drawn in certain ways.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Audra?
Yay. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I am struggling over here across the Atlantic in Europe as we deal with whatever the fuck is happening over there and the lashback of that. Finally, the European leaders have done something a little bit more dramatic because Greenland was being threatened. And isn't that crazy when white people land is being threatened? Whatever. So,
Ukraine.
so yes, like how many layers do we got to go to prove how corrupt this whole fucking thing is? Anyway, folks, I had earlier this week talked to Jordan and had invited a friend of mine, a couple of friends of mine. One is half Colombian, half American, living in LA, and she will join us in the future on these panels. And another friend of mine is here in Europe, and she is a yoga teacher, half Finnish, half Venezuelan. She wanted to join tonight's pod, but it is midnight, for instance, here. So she's in bed sleeping. She's also a yoga teacher. So she has, like me, a passion for politics. And I just want to read what she shared, where she's asked me to share this on behalf of her Venezuelan self. Yes. About Venezuela on Instagram, I've shared these past posts these 2 weeks from my opinions and the news from Venezuelan voices, and I feel the global non-Venezuelan left has serious blinkers on. The same kind of applies to Iran. The global left tends to view the U.S. as only the main imperialist enemy. Sorry, my screen just went blank. And anyone against it as a friend. And this is black and white thinking that is incredibly harmful. Even the IRI is an enemy of Israel. And this does not mean that it's not a horrible, repressive regime currently butchering protesters. Even though Venezuela calls itself a socialist republic, it has certainly never been that. It has always been an oligarchy where the poor get poorer and the corrupt politicians steal all the resources. But with Chavez and Maduro's dictatorships, it was that. And also torture and murder of dissidents, no freedom of speech or press. Chasimo, who is Chasimo? I don't actually know. Has turned Venezuela into a failed state, and Maduro was never democratically elected. We all know. So she says, I hope the podcast can reflect this fact. I am a leftist, but Venezuela ceased to be about left and right a long time ago. Simply now it's about human rights. I don't think we disagree there. And she says, anyway, the regime is still in power and normal Venezuelans have never seen any benefits from the oil. It has been stolen for decades by China and Russia. So Trump's interests lie not really in the oil itself, but to prevent China and Russia from continuing to take it. So Venezuelans have just never had it. People keep telling me on my DMs, but this is colonialism. And I keep telling them, sweetheart, Venezuela is just like most of the global South, has always been extracted and ravaged. China, Cuba, Russia, US, and even the IRI, and always someone, not the Venezuelan people. So it's just this is white supremacy. It's really just a division of us versus them. And in that duality, we have to continue to coexist in this insane reality. So what we have to do is start, naming and shaming and changing the system in order to evolve past it. I don't have any solutions. I don't have any even more motivating things to say about Venezuela because at the moment it's all eyes on Greenland, all eyes on Iran. It's so much. It feels so overwhelming. That's it.
It's meant to feel overwhelming. That's all I gotta say.
Thanks for sharing that, Audra. I appreciate that. I wanted to just bring up the fact that a Venezuelan man was shot by ICE in Minneapolis after allegedly swinging a shovel. So first of all, he was probably just shoveling snow. And second of all, I don't give a fuck if he was shoveling or if he was swinging a shovel. You don't shoot somebody and get, what the fuck? So just responses to that, and then also responses to ICE agents have detained a Navajo man in Arizona, ignoring his U.S. and tribal ID. So different indigenous tribes across Turtle Island are now preparing for ICE activity as well.
And part of that is the federally recognized, since they have land, right? They want to put some more centers on the land. My dad, in the beginning of all of this, I kept telling people my dad started carrying around his CIDB card, because that just stands for Certificate of Indian of Degree Blood. That's given to you by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. He was stopped in the 70s, and he says, now I'm in my 70s and I'm going through this again. And my dad is, like almost 6 foot. He is this tall, dark man. We're all dark skinned. And as we know, they're looking at the color of skin. They're looking for an accent. And I mean, his hair, even though he's 76, still pretty jet black, has some gray in there. But right, he fits that mold of what they're looking for. So it's pretty terrifying. And it feels very much like they're just picking up natives because they're going to try to leverage them as people against the reservation to get occupation on that land, even though that is federal land, technically in a trust by the federal government. So it's not truly just the natives and them to do everything they want. They still have rules and things they need to apply. But how much more are you going to squeeze them out of the very little you've given back? Like, it's just wild to me, and it really needs to stop. What did I tell you earlier, Jordan? Kentucky holding on to its covered in wagon beliefs. Like, it's really difficult to have conversations with these people. I've tried talking to a lot of politicians about a lot of different things, and they're like, I hear you, but that's just going to be really hard because they just won't. These other people are just not going to move on that. So it's like, why are you calling me? What is it that you want to hear about our input? They want our input, but then 95% of our input they cannot actually do anything with.
What did I just say? The meme I shared.
Yeah.
We hear you, we see you. Now get in the unmarked van.
It's just so crazy. So yeah, I definitely highly encourage everybody to take their breaks when they can from either social media, news, even participating in events, because it is all consuming, and it's getting really, really bad. It's just getting worse.
I know. We need to take care of each other as best we can. AngelMarie and then Aleyah.
Thank you. I agree with that. Like, radical love is what has kept us alive thus far, and radical love is what's going to carry us through these moments moving forward. I wanted to hop on with what you were saying, Marianne, about like ICE and just the way that, yes, bell hooks. Yes, always bell hooks. About ICE and how they really are just like the ultimate form of state-sanctioned violence. Like, they are like the ultimate combination of the police department and the prosecution's office and the KKK. Like, they are everything in its ultimate, most biggest budget form. And I say that because there are so many different forms of state-sanctioned violence. Of course, ICE is the one that I think I want to draw attention to for this point, because it kind of goes back to the question, Jordan, about the imperialism boomerang. Like, it is that mentality. Like, the problem isn't people, it's the mentality, it's the structure. And the mentality that the American government can just go to Venezuela, can go to Iran, can go to Greenland and take what they think is theirs is the same mentality that an ICE agent as an individual has. That's why we're seeing our indigenous neighbors being taken off of their own land. And just as Marianne said, it's already so little of what was given back. How can that be? And then I think another example is like the ICE agent, for example, that murdered Keith Porter Jr. It took over 2 weeks just to get the name of that agent. He still hasn't been arrested. It took 2 weeks just to get his name. And this ICE agent had murdered and taken and stolen our brother from us off duty. It happened at nighttime on a holiday, right? So it just shows like it's not just something that comes with the uniform and the gun. It really is that mentality that that causes this kind of terrorism in our communities. I saw this quote, I cannot remember who it was by, but it was like, it wasn't Hitler or Trump or the government that kidnapped my neighbor. It was the firefighter. It was the postman. It was always, it's your average everyday people. And yeah, I just wanted to comment on that because I think that's a lot of what I felt in your story, Marianne.
I love the comments about it being like your postman and it being the firefighter. Did you guys watch the video of the firefighters using a fire truck to get ICE agents onto a roof to kidnap roofers. So like literally the fire department was supporting ICE agents, you know what I mean? And so the culpability is 100%, it falls onto our hands and like what we're doing. And so like there are a lot of people that are outraged online that don't go out in person and volunteer for rapid response. And then they're like, oh my God, somebody was kidnapped yesterday. What were you doing yesterday? From 5 to 7 a.m., you know what I mean? Or from 7 to 8 a.m. Like, was there something you could have done to support those people at that time? Like, I think that it's so easy for us to put the blame on systems and institutions, and they're not wrong. The blame is on the systems and the institutions, but who makes up those systems? Who makes up those institutions? It's people. And therefore, it's people that are problematic. And there's a book club for white liberals to try to help them be a little bit less white liberally. And we're starting the book club off with Abolition Feminism Now by Angela Davis, because I think that book is a really great introduction into like what the baseline of leftist activism is, which is abolition, right? Like we believe in abolishing the systems of violence that exist through colonial power. So that means the United States empire, right? That means everything underneath the United States empire, including prisons and ICE and the police, right? Like, so trying to just get people to understand in their day-to-day lives that when they support reform instead of abolition, they waste the movement's energy on things that are not going to come to fruition. And there's a quote from the book that I want to, because I had to write down quotes for the book club, so I want to read one. Women of color activists who had dedicated our lives to working against the tyranny of gender violence and for justice for our communities found ourselves struggling for years to remake organizations that offered simplistic neoliberal responses to complex problems. These groups unquestionably assigned blame to individual perpetrators of violence rather than looking more deeply into oppressive social structures whose culpability is ideologically foreclosed. And so I really just want to challenge people who are within organizations to really look at what that organization itself is doing. So many people wanted to go out and support the Indivisibles Women's March. Well, did you guys see who was mostly at that Women's March? It was almost all white women. Marianne,
yeah, that's what, before you got on, that's what I hit on. I said the White Women's March that we don't participate in, because when we tried to 3 years ago contact the guy, I don't know if he's considered the president or organizer, but he is an older white man, and he didn't want us. He wanted us to show up for pictures and be part of it, but he didn't want us to speak. He didn't want us to have a say in how this march was led or how it panned out. And it was really upsetting because they're not really interested in listening to women of color or listening to what really the issues are. And I saw somebody use, who's running for office for the school board, and used what happened with the man being arrested and the kids on the bus seeing ICE detain a man. And I was like, the day before, a 16-year-old was taken on his way to school. He was returned later that evening, but that entire experience, you're never going to be able to get him to forget it or to see it as something was just passive or a mistake. So I hear what you're saying, because it's everybody who's running is mostly white, and they're all about, oh, we're bringing change and we need something new. And it's like, but what is it really? If you won't even talk to me, or I can't get you to schedule a meeting with me, come on now. What are you really going to change? What are you afraid of?
I think the worst part is that and this is proof of Trump, that they could change systems if they wanted to. We are seeing now, with the level of power in the hands of ICE agents and Trump supporter like elected officials, that if our elected office wanted to go out of their way to destroy these systems of harm, they very well could. You know what I mean? And they choose not to. And it's literally like it's the reason I raised my hand in the first place when Marianne was first talking, because she was talking about why even waste her breath, emailing our local elected officials when like you'd get a better response from Santa Claus, right? Like that hit home so hard. And it's because it's not who necessarily we have in office, because they often say like, well, I would love to support that. but everyone else around me would not support it. Every elected official that's not able to do something, it's not their fault. It's the system's fault. Oh, I can't do that because of the system. Motherfucker, you are the system. Change the system then. If the system's not working for you, fucking change it. Because the Republicans are in office, they're changing it, and they're actually getting shit done. Unfortunately for us, you know what I mean? There's like 10 people that raise their hand, so I'll stop talking. But real quick, for anyone listening, if there's anyone that's like young, cool, progressive person of color that's like, hey, maybe I should consider running for office, but why would I run for office? Like, I'm so not qualified. The people who are in office now are not qualified at all. You are 100% just by existing in this world more qualified than your current elected official. And if you're interested in learning how to run for office, there's going to be a training on January 24th. There's going to be former candidates of color that are running, that have run in the past and are currently running now for office. And so they're going to be speaking to you. Former campaign managers and community organizers are all going to be there to answer questions about how to build a slate of young progressive candidates of color to actually get shit changed in Ventura County. So January 24th on Zoom, linktree/YCE Fair.
Thanks, Aleyah. That's awesome. I needed some good news. Shirin, you are muted.
Press my buttons and nothing happens. Just to go back to talking about, ICE and all these, militias or whatever, consisting of just people. I don't know if you guys saw, but, and this is, by the way, the same in Iran. The regime does the same thing. We call them basijis. They're basically your average person, but they hate themselves and they're angry for whatever reason, so they take it out on, just your average person. But I don't know if you guys saw, but there was an individual who is even on some like Antifa list or whatever for being an activist and a very vocal person, ended up going and applying to be an ICE agent and was in and out and had a job in less than 6 minutes. And I think the interview was 6 minutes. They sent her a job offer before even doing like a background check. I mean, it was just bad. It was a series of no-nos. They're basically taking anyone on, and I'm pretty sure it's just about hate at this point, because even your average person is feeling emboldened to act out. We're hearing more stories of brown people getting attacked. I have a family member that was attacked by the old white dude in a grocery store lot. You know what I mean? Like it's all of those people they're going after, and unfortunately, those people, until they realize that it also will come down on them, are not really going to turn against the state. And you start seeing any entity of the state essentially becomes, anti the people, part of the oppression. So it's really difficult to see all these individuals like firefighters and all these people that are supposed to help communities now actually targeting a huge part of their community. And I just don't really know where that hate comes from, I guess, from the average person, or if it's maybe a part of just, I'm a part of the system and I benefit from it and it doesn't do anything negative to me, so what do I care?
Sorry, I'm trying to determine the order for hand raises. I think it was AngelMarie and then Court.
I'll pass because I saw the teaser for the next question, so I was like, hang on, let me wait.
All right, Court.
I just going to touch back on ICE for a second, in regards to them being unqualified. Most of them can't even read either. And that's crazy. But I don't have anything to expand on. I just wanted to remind everyone of that too.
I just wanted to add really quickly that, so by trade, I'm in healthcare. I don't work in the hospital anymore, but I did for quite some time. And it's really, I worked with a lot of people in their homes as private care or, can't even think of the word, on their hospice care. And a lot of their family members request people that speak clear English. And a lot of times they would also request people that weren't Black. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you can't say that. But they're like, it's private home duty. If they get to choose who they want. So then why would I want to go to that house? I'm feeling very uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Knowing that I'm going to inherently be working for these racist people. So sometimes I would fill in if there's somebody called in sick or couldn't make it, going to these people's home, very wealthy. And some of the thing, and they treated you, it's like, I am not here. Like, they want you to just stand in their kitchen, like a butler, stand somewhere and be constantly doing work. And it's like, I'm here to help you medically. I'm not here to take out your trash. Like, I'm a type of person that if you have a dog, I will walk your dog because I'm an animal person. So I'm okay with that. But they're really comfortable with, like, oh, I have this brown person in my house. Like, you're here to help me. So, you do your medical stuff. And then they want their bed made. And I'm, with elderly people, I'm like, okay, I'll make their bed. But I'm talking about getting to the point where, like, they're like, no, come here and fold this corner. I'm like, okay, hold on. Let's have a conversation really quick. This corner needs to be folded like this and this. And I'm like shocked that I'm here to do medical help, and I'm helping you with your medication to make sure you're taking your pills correctly and little things. And if you need a ride to the doctor, and I always take their car because I refuse to take them in my car, which we have the option to. I'm not here to be your housekeeper. And they would treat you and talk down to you. And that's still very relative. So I would even tell, let the agency know, like, this person is treating me as if I am their personal butler, if I am their maid. And I'm not going to do that because they're not being nice about it. They want you to stand there. They want you to wash their berries. I mean, the instructions some of these people give you is wild to me. And I'm like, okay, I can't work with this person. And then they'll also simultaneously complain to you and talk about their gardeners and say really racist stuff, and you're like, can you see me? Like, hello. It blows my mind. And so that is still very in the medical field and other, where you're considered people that help. They still see you very much as the help, and they want to treat you. And I'm like, we don't talk to people like that, and we don't treat people like that. That may still be deeply ingrained in you, but I'm not okay with that. So there's been a lot of jobs that I'm like, I'll finish out my time here, but I'm not coming back because I get people are emboldened. So it's really hard to see, like, from what I've seen over the last few years, is firefighters really align themselves closely with law enforcement. So these are people that the only option we have if there's something really bad to call. And a lot of times people of color do not call and do not call and do not call because that's what they're faced with, even with calling and needing help for a specific reason. So it's out there, but yes, now they're very emboldened and they're fine to say it. And I firmly believe, somebody was saying something about the Black Panthers. They have so much jealousy and hate because this group got together and established successful programs for their community. They weren't able to do that. They didn't want to do that. And because somebody else has done that, they hate you even more for being productive, for being able to care, because they see us, they have dehumanized us. So when we're taking these real human actions of caring for our community, not because we're blood related, not because we're getting paid to, because we want to, they can't handle that because they don't have that level of empathy. It doesn't exist within them.
Yeah, and really just to tie it back into Venezuela, it's indicative of just dehumanization, Marianne. This is how so many people just view other people of color. They're less than human. Their resources belong to ours. We get what we want from them. My
I had
question,
sorry.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I had a very, very forward-thinking boss back in the day who my little immigrant mom, turns to him and goes, "Oh, look, see, immigrants work really hard." She's trying to get a raise, whatever. And he turns around and just very nonchalant, like he wasn't even thinking about it, just out with his gut and was like, "Yeah, because they're hungry." And I mean, and it wasn't the hungry kind of like, hungry. It was, you're
Starving.
hungry. Yeah.
Yeah. My question for the panel is, what do we think the future of Venezuela and Latin America look like with the latest U.S. military action there? What does the United States look like? Yeah,
Not
Kaitlyn.
good.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it's kind of hard to say. I feel like because like I don't know. I was surprised. I'm trying to keep up on like events, like Venezuela and Iran and Greenland and like I mean ice too, and like yeah, there's like so much going on. Like the last I heard with like Maduro was like they're expecting for the trial of him to go into like 2027 and like last for years, and like it kind of I don't know. People are saying it kind of seems like the government there, like with Delcy Rodriguez, who's the successor for Maduro, is is gonna be there for a while. Who knows if there will be like more military action there? I don't think there will be from America anytime soon, but there is still the embargo, and I'm pretty sure we're not gonna get. I'm pretty sure America's not gonna get rid of that at all. And so, yeah, I'm pretty sure the sanctions will continue. Um, yeah. What does anybody else think?
I
Or
don't
does
know.
anyone else say anything?
I just feel like their future is not good, even with us trying to say we're going to step in and help, because we don't ever really help. We're there to exploit and take from them. And they're never going to agree with anybody that they feel is good enough in power. Not that it's their decision. I keep saying there when, ultimately it's Trump. Unless you get somebody like Netanyahu, somebody who's going to collude with him, be in cahoots with him. And, we're next, he's going to be talking about the Riviera in Venezuela. Like, it's unreal, the ideas and the things they come up with. It's the same thing over and over and over. We're coming there to help you. They need our help, and it's like in the meanwhile, like your own people in your own country who actually need help, they don't want to help. So yeah, I don't see that their future is going to be well. And now he's trying to move, ships out of Venezuela to Greenland, as the rest of the world is sending ships to Greenland. And the whole time my mind is like, what's happening to the whales? Because they're getting ready to their migration. And there's a lot of these things that we're not that are important, but they're not talking about. And I feel like, I've always felt from the beginning, everything that he's doing, he's going to bankrupt the country, city by city, county by county, state by state, because he needs so much money to fuel all of this. How are we going to try to get in wars? Well, I keep saying we, but him involving himself in all these other countries. Greenland made it very clear. They're not up for sale, and they're not going to join. I don't blame them. They shouldn't have to. We do have resources here, but he wants to continue to exploit the resources here, to the fact that this is going to, completely destabilize the country even more. We don't have enough water. I could go on and on about the environmental impact of it, but then to also go to these other countries and do the same things, like the amount of money and resources that he's trying to steal from everybody blows my mind. It's type of money that none of us will probably ever see in our lifetime. And what is he trying to fuel? Like, he's going to destroy and make all of these countries, destabilize all of them. And in the meantime, get in a huge war. I know Iran. I have to say, Iran, I heard that threat and I was like, whoo, like that's what I'm talking about, right? Somebody who's actually letting him know, like, hey, we're not putting up with this. And we're going to say how we feel. And because it feels like that's the only time you get that type of person to listen, is to be real and honest and say it straightforward.
Court.
Hello. Yeah, kind of going off that in regards to how we think Venezuela is going to be. And I say not good because exactly how we've discussed. Look at how we've left other countries like Afghanistan, Iraq. Look at how we've left, LA and Hawaii and Texas and like people in our own country. Look what happened up in Alaska. And you just don't hear about it. And it's insane that I think it's absolutely absurd that anybody thinks that we would be going there to help anyone. Our track record doesn't show that ever. And I'm curious about the minds of people who still think that. And if it is, I just, I don't know. It's something to say about that. And, in regards to Marianne and the whole health of the planet of it all, it's like, not only are we constantly worrying about, our neighbors, like, and what's happening to them, but now we're also worrying about like just our livelihoods and, not, and I don't know. I I think about how these people preach, their Christianity and their love of God and his creation, but like you're always destroying the creation. And I don't know, it boggles my mind, like how these people come to these conclusions that like destroying resources and continuously destroy like everything that's beautiful around us and poisoning our air and water, um, just for money. It I don't know. It's just really upsetting to watch around it. It's really hard to see like what are we supposed to focus on? It's really hard because you want to try and help in every which way you can. Not that I'm saying that, you shouldn't help in every which way you can, but I don't know. Just kind of bouncing off that. It's just it's just a scary time right now. And yeah, the planet is definitely always at the forefront of my mind. And what's happening in Gaza and how much, that's like the equivalent of like, I don't know, like 60 Hiroshima bombs dropped on there that they've done to the Gaza Strip. And like we've said before, everything that they're doing overseas into, Gaza and Venezuela, and what they're threatening to do is coming right back on us with this imperial boomerang. But again, we've always been doing that to our citizens. I mean, we've got Jim Crow. This is just Jim Crow. Eugenics inspired the Holocaust. So it's funny that people want to call like people Nazis when it's just like, really, it's just good old fashioned like American nationalism. Yeah. Yeah. The move bombing in Philly. I mean, the Tulsa race massacres, all of that.
Yeah, all well said, Court. AngelMarie?
I think Shirin.
I can go after you. Go ahead.
No, Queen, go, go, go.
Okay.
It's
Oh my
okay.
God. Blushing. Okay. All right. Thank you. It's beautiful. I was going to say, as far as what to expect from Venezuela, obviously, to happen to Venezuela, it'd be very, not that, I'm a soothsayer of any variety, but like seeing what they've done to the Middle East, implanting a figurehead that they then buy off essentially and have them empty out the resources, and instead of giving it to the people, sell it to America for dirt cheap or whatever. It's what they've done in the Middle East and what they're trying to do again with Pahlavi. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the exiled prince and how he's all of a sudden friends with Netanyahu and Trump and um, one of the ones that looks like he's the Walking Dead. Anyways, and just very clearly, very blatantly making these deals that should, to the average person, say, "Wait, we've seen this before." Like they're just trying to put in a figurehead that they'll control, and if the population tries to give them crap for it, they'll just call it reform, and good to go. And so I think that's what we're going to see eventually come back around to the U.S. as well in full force. I mean, it was the UN, I think it was pre-COVID, but they went to Alabama and they said it was like a third world country. And that's pretty much what, like 90% of America. So it's already happening. They're already sucking it dry of resources. It's just not in the average person's eyeballs, on their doorstep, if you will, yet. So no one wants to deal with that uncomfortable fact.
100%. I want to respond really quickly to the last thing you said. As someone who was born and raised in third world America, 100%. Like the fact that I even live in Ventura County right now is crazy, y'all. But it is true. Like the illusion that we don't have poverty, that we don't have traces of colonization, imperialism within our own communities is just so fake. But I wanted to respond earlier to the question that you asked, Court, like between Venezuela, Latin America, and Greenland and Iran, like it's so much, like where do you even begin to focus? This is something that we actually were talking about in one of the organizations here in Ventura County, Liberation Education, is like the concept of unipolarity and multipolarity. And last time in the last episode of the podcast, we talked about one of the things that comes to the United States government as a benefit to invading Venezuela. And we talked about how geographically it's an advantageous point. And when we look like geographically at like all the things that are happening, it's not a coincidence that they're all happening at the same time, because living under fascism, living under late stage capitalism means our nation is dying. It means our economy is decaying. It means that we are going from being the unipolar superpower of the world to every other nation that we were colonizing in a very strong attempt to free themselves. So when it's to like the question of like, well, what can we do in Venezuela? What can we do for Latin America? That was a lot of the questions that I was asking myself during Palestine. Like, we in the belly of the beast do have certain responsibilities for international solidarity, whatever that may look like. But ultimately, Palestine will free Palestine. Venezuela will free Venezuela. Latin America will free Latin America, and we will free ourselves. And this kind of goes back into what Aleyah was saying earlier about like, yes, talking about is important, awareness about it is important, but like, what is the action we're doing? If we're all doing the action and we all have the same oppressor, we're all tangling, the tentacle that's around us, the head is going to eventually fall. That's what I meant earlier in my comment when I said nastiest ankle. If y'all are not familiar, it's like this trend on TikTok where it's like there's such a strong anti-ICE culture on TikTok naturally, which is beautiful, which is great, and is really telling about like how people are feeling about the current conditions of our society. But like, if you're not familiar, the trend is like if an ICE agent comes into your home, like you have to show a clip of the nastiest angle, like where you're gonna do the point where you're gonna get them. So it's like it would be someone like on top of a dresser, like hiding, and they would take like a picture and they're like, oh, this is where I'm gonna. And the fact that that's such a trend is so beautiful. But if everyone who is posting like nastiest angle, because like if an ICE agent comes into my house, I will like attack them, I will defend myself. If everyone just turned that mentality into, I can do 30 minutes of patrolling for a rapid response network to actually confront the ICE agent in a structural community way, that can solve already so much of what's going on in our immediate community. So that's just like one example of action that we can do for ourselves and liberating ourselves. And that's going to look different for people in different areas, different nations, because we're all attacking the same system, which is the United States government.
That was so beautifully well said. Oh my God. I almost just want to end the episode there. I want to bring up Greenland now. So while Trump threatens a full takeover of Greenland by the US, the conversation is largely dominated by NATO. And that pisses me off in itself, right? Because the entire conversation has been focused on Euro relations and European white colonialism, really, instead of the indigenous Inuit population. So the reason I bring that up is because they're talking about NATO implications, but the fact of the matter is Greenland has already been subjected to colonial rule by the Danish government for centuries. It was formerly referred to as a Danish colony up until 1953, when the island was then integrated as a county, which is not decolonization. So the Danes naturally implemented a cultural genocide there, with its policies mandating Danish assimilation, forced relocation of indigenous communities. Sound familiar? And Trump's latest quote, because this administration just rips the mask off. They just straight up say things. It's the most corrupt administration ever. Every single presidential administration has been unbelievably corrupt, but they're just so open about it. So he says, the fact they landed a boat there 500 years ago doesn't mean they own the land. Let's talk about that.
That's what we've been saying.
Well, I have a story to tell you. How much time do you have? Yes, Kaitlyn Sage.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else wants to go first. I mean, Greenland's one of those things. I feel like it's like such a, I don't know, it feels like it's such a small part of the world, but it's like there's like so much going on there at the same time. Because like I feel like there's lots of reasons why Trump and America could like want Greenland, and I guess Greenland's actually America's tried to get Greenland before, and like purchase it, and I'm pretty sure it's because there are like lots of like rare minerals there and like resources. I think one reason is also, or another reason is like the security for like against Russia basically. And so that's like one reason. That's another major reason why I think America wants Greenland. Um, yeah, I was wondering how many how many, do you know how many indigenous people are there? Because I mean, yeah, I don't like support the colonization at all. I'm just curious, like how many
It's about 30,000 people on the whole island.
there's in total, like including the indigenous and the Danish.
As far as I know, yeah.
Do you know how many are indigenous of that population?
No. But I can find
Yeah.
out. Court.
I know that they do also consider Greenland as a really advantageous place, even though we do have access to Russia through Alaska. Um, from Greenland, there's actually like a pretty direct shot to major cities in Russia, which is, and then with that, and I know we spoke about this in the last panel, but with that, they they know that the ice is melting because of climate change, but then won't acknowledge climate change in any other way, which is infuriating. But in regards to those in Greenland, I know that it's still a regular practice by the Danish government to take away indigenous babies from their moms, because, and that's part of the cultural genocide. They are like Danish citizens, and they don't want them. It's what we both us and Canada did to, you know, Native Americans for centuries, and the Danish are still doing that to those who are indigenous to Greenland. And yeah, again, it's colonization all over again, and people just thinking that they have the right to like things that they don't. But the irony of acknowledging that just because they landed there 500 years ago, they don't have a right to the land. I'm like, oh, so Trump, you've understood land back now. Can we please just move with that one and leave them the fuck alone?
I think Kaitlyn Sage, then AngelMarie.
Yeah. I kind of forgot what I was gonna say off of what you were saying, Court. Those are all really good points. I kind of forgot what my point was gonna be. But yeah, I saw that you looked it up, Jordan, and there's like 20,000.
Yeah,
out of
20,000 indigenous Inuit people in Greenland.
Yeah, I mean that's a good amount. I mean it doesn't really matter. I think, you know, all indigenous people, and I mean everywhere that's been colonized should have their own. I think should have their own voice and have the ability to decide their own state and I don't know their own society and, you know, their way of life and whatnot. Oh yeah, that was one thing too. A lot of the like European countries like Denmark, like it's kind of surprising, I feel like, to learn that like Greenland is still part of Denmark. But a lot of like the European colonizers, like kind of like America with Puerto Rico. Well, actually not with Puerto Rico like that. A lot of like France and Denmark, when they have like the colonies like today, they actually like make them parts of like the Republic, and that's what like France was trying to do in Algeria, like during the whole Algerian War. If anyone knows about that, but they're still basically colonies, I think, even though they're like basically like states and like a union kind of thing. I don't know if like I don't know if anyone if that's important or not. But,
Well, you could look up like New Caledonia, the indigenous population there has been
yeah,
resisting French colonialism for independence. But yeah, there's a number of examples.
yeah.
AngelMarie?
I was gonna add that the struggle of indigenous sovereignty in Greenland is a struggle that has existed since before Trump announced that he was trying to buy the nation. So I think we should be really careful about like the talking points around that, because if Trump like so seriously cared about indigenous sovereignty, he would give land back to the nation that he is ruler of before trying to all of a sudden liberate indigenous peoples in a nation far away.
Well said. Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, I have a specific example of Danish colonization of Greenland. So there was a missionary by the name of Hans. I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation because I don't speak this language, but Hans Ajeti found that local Inuit had no concept for what bread was, so he changed the Lord's Prayer to say, "Give us this day our daily seal." So literally just making shit up so that you have to give us food.
Well, historically, that's the way it's been, right? They don't
Yes.
understand the language, they don't understand the concept. So we still today have an issue with, much of our Chumash history is written by non-Chumash people who just took their perspective on what we said or what we were trying to describe, but that doesn't mean that that's exactly what it is. So even though I have some good relationships with a couple of anthropologists and archaeologists, there's still things that we don't totally agree on, and I often tell them, they don't have any understanding of certain things because they've never lived a life or have had generations in their family teach them about something. So even though it doesn't make sense to them, doesn't mean because it doesn't, that's just the right analogy of what their understanding of it is. So I feel like Greenland, yeah, I mean, I feel like even if there was 1,000 people there, like leave it alone. They've clearly stated where they stand with it. Um, we need like we're not going to be this massive kingdom of countries. Like nobody's ever going to allow Trump to just keep taking and taking. And to me, that doesn't show strength. It shows how weak and how vulnerable we are because we can't maintain what we have. We're trying to go out here and forcefully take everything from everyone. But just because, even if he did take over these countries, doesn't mean these people are going to be in any way any type of allegiance to him. Like,
Mhm.
it's really strange. Like, he's acting off of probably history he read when he was in school. And most people
He
are
didn't
not just,
read anything.
yeah, they're not going to put up with it. That's what somebody was saying here. I was like, but they like them that way, uneducated, unable to problem solve or critically think because they're so easy to manipulate. And that is so sad. It's really scary.
Yeah, definitely. Shit, I was gonna say something about this. Oh yeah. I was gonna say my whole issue with this thing is just the lack of mutual exclusivity, the lack of people being able to understand the nuance of this issue. So you can, on the one hand, you can understand that Greenland deserves to be away from U.S. imperialism, and you can also acknowledge that the indigenous Inuit population deserves to be free from the Danes. Why is it one or the other? It's just indicative of European relation colonialism.
Because they're so afraid. They're so afraid for indigenous people, other than white European or white Americans. They're terrified of any of us to have our own anything. They know we'd be stronger and better, and they would not stand a chance. And that's why they're continuously trying to suppress it, because we would run our own governments far better than they ever could. And we wouldn't have capitalism. And they can't handle that because they won't survive. They'll be back to the, excuse me for this, what I'm about to say, but they'll be back to the starving pilgrims that they were in the beginning. But we won't make that mistake twice. And they know that.
Kaitlyn Sage. We'll just have one more comment, and then I'm going to take a break, and then we'll dive into the Middle East.
Yeah, I was gonna say about Greenland. Um, oh yeah, like everyone having what you were saying, Jordan, about having a nuanced opinion about it, and like yeah, I feel like there's like so much going on, even with something like Greenland, and I try to keep up with like a lot of the news that's being shared. Like, well, I just watch on YouTube and things about like Venezuela and Iran. Not so, I guess not so much about Greenland on the news, but I'm always surprised at like the reasons that all the news anchors and the people that they interview are saying. All the reasons are like very much pro whatever Trump is saying, even if like it's a I don't know CNN or something. If it's Fox News, it's definitely pro Trump. But yeah, there's like no questioning of like what's going on. I'm pretty sure I don't know like what people's opinion about Greenland is. Like on like from like the mainstream news, everyone on mainstream news is saying that like Venezuela and Iran, yeah, their regimes should go, which is like kind of making me like I don't know. It's like when I listen to that like all the time, I'm like this like it is really like a brainwash like I don't know. I definitely feel like these days like the media corporations are all trying to brainwash the population.
Just privatize state
Yeah.
TV.
Yeah. Yep. Everyone's saying the same thing all the time. Yeah.
They do. We argue back with the TV. We yell at them.
Mhm.
In our house, that's how we do it. Such lies. Oh my God, did you hear what they said? That's not true. And all our neighbors, like downstairs and to the left.
Mhm.
I used to live in Satico, the unincorporated area. Now we're in a condo where like there's 4 little things together. So to the left.
Okay, so I mentioned 1953 because that was the year that Greenland became a Danish colony, or a Danish county. That same year, the US, the CIA, and the British MI6 orchestrated a coup to overthrow Iranian President Mossadegh to protect oil interests. This was codenamed Operation Ajax by the CIA. As president, Mossadegh nationalized oil in Iran and refused to concede to Western oil demands, so it's pretty obvious why they initiated a coup. So, Shirin, I would just like you to talk about events in Iran before we dive into the discussion. I think your perspective on this is obviously very important and needed right now.
I appreciate that. Thank you. The last 2 weeks have been absolutely horrifying. The regime has obviously been continuously violating human rights and execution. I mean, every kind of violation to rights that you can imagine. But the past 2 weeks was the biggest massacre at the hands of the regime since the revolution in '79. There have been upwards of 20,000 people massacred. A lot of Iranians that are fleeing Iran via Turkey or wherever where they're able to are saying that it's a lot worse than we've even seen. What little horrifying images I've seen is piles of bodies on the street sides, just like swept to the side so people can walk. There was a video that even came out where someone recorded 2 straight minutes of shooting into a group of protesters, everyone from children to moms, and now they're going after people in hospital beds who are protesters. They're going after doctors who are helping people in the hospitals. They're raiding their homes and detaining them violently. So it's definitely a regime that it is on its last legs, and they're showing their desperation with how much violence they're enacting. So there's this sickening feeling to everyone, as we look back to see what's happening in Iran and feeling guilty for feeling so safe back here and then watching them risk their lives. It's been really difficult to be hopeful and also live with the reality of what's happening. And on top of that, there's so much nuance and convoluted politics and who's going to take over after this. And it's just tearing people up in so many different ways. It's more trauma than I think the Iranian people needed or could handle at this time. But a lot of people have to be strong and keep talking about it, because if they're still out in the streets fighting, which they are, and the regime is cutting out the internet, and they're not able to actually be seen or be heard. It's important for us to keep the story going and keep it alive. So thank you guys.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for saying all that. My question for the panel is, what do we think the action in Venezuela means for future strikes in Iran, and also really just U.S.-backed military and economic support for Israel more broadly? Because I think this has big time implications, and I think obviously Trump specifically is going to and has used the Iranian protests to further his U.S. imperial agenda. What do we think? I know it's a big question and it's a heavy topic. I'll start with you, Kaitlyn Sage, and then we'll go to AngelMarie.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I'm like I was saying before. I'm trying to keep up on like world events and like Venezuela and Iran and Greenland. I mean, they're all really connected. Obviously, like one way they're connected is like the U.S. military is what's carrying out all this stuff. And I mean, that's one question I had about Iran and what you were saying, Shirin. Is that how you pronounce your name, Shirin?
Shireen.
Shirin.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I've been hearing a lot about like on the news they'll say like what like the statistics that you're saying like thousands of people who are killed and wounded. I heard something like 300,000 people maybe wounded. I mean, I always when I hear that, I always kind of like think, whatever the statistics are, how are they like counted? I mean, actually, I don't know. Actually, that's a whole like that's like a whole thing. But like one question I had, Shin. Oh my gosh, is it Shirin?
Hey, Shireen. That works. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, like I'm hearing a lot about like how Mossad in America could be involved with the protests in Iran. Are you hearing that too? And I'm hearing like they're saying the Iranian regime is saying that like the Mossad agents and I mean I guess like CIA agents or American agents or whatever, they're responsible for a lot of the violence. I mean, yeah, have you heard anything like that, Shin?
Yes. So I've heard both sides of that conversation. Unfortunately, that's where a lot of the propaganda and the news are getting mixed in. The regime in Iran only benefits by saying that it's US imperialism that's doing this. It's muddling the conversation quite a bit. Not only are they taking away from the actual conversation of why the people are protesting and delegitimizing their actual wants and needs and their actual fight for survival, but it's also going to turn a lot of people away. I actually saw a woman who approached an Iranian protest just over the weekend and was yelling at them and saying, "Don't you see that this is just this was done on purpose? We can't pay attention to it because this was done by purpose by the West and by Israel, you know, and so we can't pay attention. We can't legitimize it." It's painful because I think there are some truths. Obviously, the U.S. and Israel have a huge hand in egging everybody on back home. They're releasing videos saying, "Yeah, get out there, go fight," you know, from their beautiful castles and safety, telling everyone to go back and, you know, fight and get killed in the streets. But it's to their own agenda. They themselves are not anybody on the ground that's inciting any of this. So when the regime says that, they're just trying to take away from the conversation. I don't know if you guys remember when Gina Mahsa Amini was killed in 2022 and the Women Life Freedom movement started. A lot of the conversation all of a sudden became, oh, these women just want to be naked. They're just not religious. They just want to be naked in the streets. So it's like anytime the people are fighting for their freedom, they try to change that narrative of, oh, the women are just crazy. Oh, they need to be institutionalized. Oh, you know, this is just about the economy and look, we're making it better. And it never becomes about the fact that at this point it's straight survival. So both sides are trying to muddle that conversation in order to control the narrative. So it becomes really difficult to know what's actually happening. And so a lot of the Iranian diaspora, like we have to end up, going through so much news, because even our news, like Iran International, has been known to be affiliated with a lot of Israeli money. So, a lot of news that we get, we have to also sift through to try to understand what actually happened and didn't. The only sanity and numbers that we have are the human rights groups that are keeping tabs on what the actual people on the ground are saying. So similar to how we pay attention to news in Gaza, we're having to do the same with, the actual people in the street and the families who are picking up the dead bodies and reporting them.
Go ahead, Court.
I just want to say, I'm incredibly thankful to hear from you today, Shirin, because I'm learning a lot. And I guess what I want to point out too is it getting muddied, and in regards to Israel is, and the U.S. within that, is we know that Israel wants to expand Greater Israel, and they want Iran and much of the surrounding areas to do that. So I'm seeing it as an excuse to do that. And again, them going in there being like, oh, we're helping. Like, we're going to help them. We're going to bring them democracy. And when really it's about resources and, the land and all that, because they want to start another war, or it's U.S. expansion via Israel, because Israel is U.S. expansion in that area.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Israel's just a U.S. colony. It's not any more complex than that.
No, and there have been a lot of videos that have come out of even, different representatives of the Israeli government, or Bibi back in the day, like talking about how Iran has so much resources, and then also strategically speaking, the Kurdish, the ethnic group of the region, the Kurdish regions, are very, very not only resource rich, but also very strategically placed to towards the east, if you will. So they've been planning this along with the rest of the Middle East for a very long time, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think when we focus so much that Mossad is starting all this violence and is behind all the protests, it completely delegitimizes the Iranian people who have been rising up against the regime for decades. And also, there are millions of Iranians that are pro-Palestine that are also anti-Iranian regime, and that needs to be talked about more.
Thank you. Yes, there's a lot of nuances there. And there are a lot of Iranians that are very loud and very obnoxious, and they're monarchists and they're Zionists somehow, which, is diluted. It doesn't make any sense, but whatever. There are a lot of them, but I think it's a lot similar to American politics, where like the more ignorant ones are the loudest ones. There's a large population I'm finding of legitimately, like, ethically even keeled, if you will, across the board Iranians, and it's nice to see, because it's very devastating to think about the number of Iranians that are being kind of curtailed in the movement in order for a select few to get that instant freedom through coming back to a system that already was not great to, the minority groups to begin with.
Kaitlyn, Sage, go ahead. And then AngelMarie.
Yeah, that was one thing. Going off what you were saying, Sharon, about the like Pahlavi. Yeah, and like it's a very that's like very confusing with all the news and the media going on. I'm very surprised that like that guy, the exiled crown prince, he's very pro-Israel, and he's very pro-Western, pro-America. And I saw an interview. I mean, the Shah from the before that they overthrew, that Iran overthrew. I was seeing an interview, I think on YouTube or somewhere, that he was even he was criticizing like Israel. And that was in the 70s,
Yeah.
and he was like very much aligned with the West. And so, yeah, to me that kind of shows like how much like I don't know the pro-Israel propaganda and like the Zionist propaganda and like our mainstream news. It's like I don't know. It kind of seems like if you look at the Middle East today, almost every nation is very much like pro-Israel or has like the normalized relations, like Egypt and Saudi Arabia and Jordan. I think maybe Iraq and Syria now too. And what they're doing to Iran today, I think they're trying to. It's like the same thing that they're doing that they did to Syria with Assad and everything. And so yeah, I definitely feel like it's a really like messed up situation. And I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say like I outright support the regime in Iran, but if you look at what happened to Syria, like before Assad, or I'm sorry, after Assad got overthrown, and how it is today, the rulers who are in place in Syria today are all Israel proxies. So I think the people in Iran just have to be like very cognizant of that, and I think most people are kind of aware of that. Like you were saying, sharing like the history of like the history of like America and Israel too, like coercing the leaders of different countries to the ruin of like a lot of people. So yeah, we just gotta be people everywhere gotta be aware of that, I think. And I'm very surprised that Reza Shah Pahlavi guy is for Israel. It's not a good sign. Hopefully he doesn't win. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
I wanted to ask Shirin, with this most recent escalation happening in Iran, I couldn't help but remember like the escalation that we witnessed in this like last summer. I said the summer of 2025. That was like last summer.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, am I jumping the gun, Jordan? Should I?
No. You're on point. There's the 11-day war or 12 days or something. Well,
Right, right. I just wanted to like ask like how would you describe that plays into everything that's happening right now? Because I remember when that was going on in the summer, so many organizations, so many leftist organizations, not just here in Ventura County, but I feel like also in LA, relatively everywhere, dare I say, in California at least. I'll say that much. Like very much showed like a lot of solidarity for Iran and what was going on in that moment. So I wanted to ask like how those two are related, if at all.
So it's really interesting because they're two different crowds. And California is very famous for having both kinds, but especially a lot of monarchists. A lot of Iranians that are not supportive of the Israeli government did not want that foreign intervention. They didn't want, someone else to come in to try to free the people, because the people should free themselves. That's a whole different conversation. But to come in and try to co-opt somebody else's movement in order to gain your own is just not what a lot of the progressive Iranians wanted. A lot of us were under the impression that once you see somebody, the government murder a bunch of people, they'll do it again in an instant. So that fear of how that was going to happen. There are a lot of loud Iranians of a smaller sect who are pro-Israel who were actually crying out for Israel to continue. So it's a very divisive conversation, but I'm glad to say that there are quite a few people that are having that conversation of, hey, Israel is trying to take Iran for its resources. Israel's not trying to free you because they believe in your freedom. At what point, when Iranians were getting massacred in 2009, did the US and Israel care? At what point, so I think for some people it's that hope of, exactly, Israel's still bombing Syria. Thank you for the freedoms. But I think it's a it's difficult to not have any hope. So I think for people that are actively on the street, seeing their loved ones get massacred by the regime, because they are trying to, I don't know, show their love on the street or be who they are. And I'll say that the regime may be anti-Israel, but I know a lot of really bad dudes that know how to co-opt psychological language to all of a sudden seem like they're a good person. The regime just doing exactly that, and they've seen how the left is responding to them, and they're eating it up. They love it. They love being known as, okay, so there's an anti-imperialist movement. Guess what, guys? We're anti-imperialists. That nuance is lacking in a lot of the conversation out west, and they're just eating it up.
Yeah, I mean, this is slightly off topic, but also kind of not. I remember back in 2021, in July, there were a number of Cubans rising up against the state there. And I actually had some arguments with leftists because they were basically rooting on the state and the cops to beat the shit out of these protesters because it's a socialist government, so they can do whatever they want, right? And it just fucking pissed me off.
And AngelMarie, just to kind of touch back on kind of like what happened and everything, they did hit a lot of the military capabilities of the regime. So what with going after the proxies in the region and then going after a lot of the military reserves, then they're kind of trying to destabilize the Iranian regime enough that if they egg on the Iranian people to go be sacrificed for, for their fight, then they can go in, take Pahlavi, put him in power, and now they have a figurehead that's in control in Iran. So that was more of a performative knock out their resources kind of move, unfortunately.
So, what do you think the implications of the Iranian protests are in general for Palestinians?
I need more words. What do you mean?
Okay.
Because that can, yeah, that's
Yeah, do you think like Iran's on the verge of another revolution, a civil war that could spill out? Will that implicate Palestinians in their fight for sovereignty and independence? Because I definitely see a lot of correlation there.
I think that what the regime has been providing to Palestine has really just been resources for Hamas, which, while they are, the conversation is so deep, but at the end of the day, if you don't have an oppressive, controlling entity in any group of people, then they're going to be a little out of control. So Hamas functions the same way that small sanctions of the regime also function, unfortunately, which is to be an oppressive force that's also controlling, that's fighting for your security, but at the same time, just like we use the language for sake of security here, they do that back home. It's for the sake of security, but all of a sudden women are being silenced, they're being beaten on the street, they're being kidnapped, people are getting shot in the eye for standing there and chanting freedom, freedom, freedom. They've mutilated so many kids, and it's always of an age range that's very obvious. It's people that are trying to fight for freedom. So it's a really job well done to control that narrative for sure. But I think as far as Palestinians go, there are a lot of, actually, I'm glad to see, that are saying, we also stand with the people of Iran because we see you fighting the same fight. And I'm glad that they're coming out and seeing, because there are a lot of Iranians that don't see that. The regime has a way of indoctrinating the people that live there and telling them, oh, well, we're not giving you your resources, but guess where it's going? It's going to Palestinians. We're not giving you resources, but guess where it's going? So rubbing it in people's faces, it's a lot of controlled narrative that's just doing people a disservice. But I don't think that the regime leaving would be detrimental for Palestine in a bad way, because
So,
they're
wait,
not going to go against Israel unless Israel comes to them.
just so I understand correctly, are you saying a lot of Iranians are being pushed towards Zionism because of deteriorating material conditions.
Yes. Because of
Yeah,
the economy, because of the resources being bled dry, kind of like how we're against the immigrants and
classic
that's the system
fascism.
we have here. Exactly. So a lot of them are being turned, against because they're now against regime and all they've heard their whole lives is death to the USA, death to Israel. They're against us. Well, if they're against you and we hate you and you're killing us, they've got to be our friends. Kind of the same thing we're doing with the opposite side of the narrative.
That makes a lot of sense. Anything else? I'm pretty much out of questions, so we're at the wrap up section. Really appreciate the discussion. It's been awesome.
Thank you
I've
guys so much for asking the questions. I think it's when people don't ask is when the narrative gets continued in that, weird way. But I think actually asking someone, hey, what's going on is probably the purest way you're going to get that information right now.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so grateful to everybody today.
I'm so grateful for you guys. This is a wonderful community.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
I have actually another quick question for Shirin. Um, I was like, are we like concluding the session right now, or like the I don't know, our time here?
Yeah, this discussion is part of the panel.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was wondering, how do you keep up on the news in Iran, or like what's going on? Because I know they have the whole internet blackout. I was using, I don't know if you ever if you use any apps. One way I was keeping up on the situation in Palestine and in Ukraine and Russia too is like I use Telegram, and that's like an app you can like send like you know
Encrypted
uncensored.
messages, supposedly.
What was that?
Encrypted messages, supposedly, yes.
Supposedly, yeah. Then you can like send like the really gory like bloody footage. I don't know. Are you on Telegram? Because I'm not on it too much. Because like if I watch that like every single day, it's kind of very traumatizing. So, yeah. Do you like? How do you keep up on that stuff?
It's a mixture of lots of things, but thankfully there are some people that do have a lot of resources that will collect them and post them. So it's been a little refined now, but it's always people that that aren't affiliated with any big groups, honestly. It's all people that are either independent journalists that are overseas or human rights groups that are overseas or just honestly the kids in Iran posting. And with the internet blackout, they're very smart. There's some VPN usage, some random Starlink connections apparently, but they're still getting word out because they know that the whole point of the blackout is to not be seen and then silently massacred. So they're still getting word and their voice out to people in Telegram, WhatsApp, on Instagram. But the best sources, I would have to say are through weird communication channels that people get. It's definitely not state media. It's a lot of comparing stories.
It's a great question. Anything else? All right, let's do plugs. AngelMarie, we'll start with you. How can people find you online? What are you working on? What do you want people to know about?
Oh, okay. It's like that. All right. Thank you. What's up, y'all? Thank y'all for listening, tuning in. I'm AngelMarie. I'm just a local college student who cares about anti-fascist work. Y'all can find me on social media. I'm with an amazing org called Liberation Education, where we focus on political education like this. It's libed, libed.csuci@gmail.com. Oh, wait, not Gmail. Just that on Instagram. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's just my name. So yes, thank you.
Thanks, AngelMarie. Would love to have you back. Shirin, the woman of the hour.
Oh my God, stop. No, I'm just happy to get to talk about Iran where I can in English because the conversation just honestly doesn't happen. People don't want to know. The Middle East is messy. So, just write it off. But I do a weekly radio hour / podcast called Freedom Hour Iran, where I talk about the news as it currently as possible, and then also talk about the Iranian culture and play some music to try to show people that we're human, just like everybody else. you can find us, Freedom Hour Iran, on Instagram, and then also my name, and then the letters O and H on Instagram as well, if you want to follow some sad Iranian news, hopeful Iranian news, and hopefully see the freedom of Iran. Maybe follow me if you can, hopefully.
Thank you so much again. Audra?
Wow, it's been so great to be here. I'm sorry I've been so quiet. I'm exhausted.
It's
It's
late.
well after. Yeah, it's 1:15 here. And I'm like dozing off, feeling very heavy. But I had gotten my notebook out. I'm just so grateful to be here because, I tuned out of American media, and then now I don't even watch like local Dutch news. I take my news from social media and these kinds of groups. And that's for me the most important thing at the moment, because I feel like I'm building community and learning real eyewitness stories. So I'm just really grateful to have this space here. It just feels communal. Um, Okay, yeah, I'm Audra. I'm over here in Europe, and I am writing a book about social media and what we need to be doing to change our digital footprint online and protect our security. And also, it's sharing a memoir-style account of my version of being online and how that's positively and negatively impacted my life. So I'm over on Substack writing basically a blog to book format and finding other social media creators that are actively also using their accounts to either very clearly be part of the resistance or do it subtly. So I'm trying to merge a bunch of different themes all into one, and currently developing a lot of research and development to get to the final stages where I can publish the book. I'm on the socials, most active right now on TikTok, and it's because I feel like that one is going to go down as well. I already think that Meta is dead. So I have a big hatred towards the technocrats and feel that our world becomes extremely divided, as I really do feel like the patriarch is ambitiously trying to rewrite history at this moment. And I have lots of strong predictions of how that could end up in a dystopian warfare kind of way. So I think that the efforts are good, that we can continue to connect globally, almost like pen pals. And eventually I'll start sending out the carrier pigeons soon. That's it. Happy to be here. Thanks, guys.
Always here for it. Thank you so much, Audra. And get some sleep.
Yeah, I'm going to bed. Yeah.
All right, good night. Kaitlyn Sage?
Hello, yeah, I'm Kaitlyn Sage. I don't have very much going on. I'm a student at CSUN, so shout out to CSUN. I live in LA. I used to live in Simi, so shout out to Simi, 805, Ventura County. Yeah, thanks for letting me on here and listening to my thoughts. And I appreciate everyone's thoughts and experiences, especially Shirin. Yeah, your no personal experience, yeah, it's like so important. So keep sharing your story, and yeah, that goes for everyone. Everyone's personal experience is so important. So keep up the good fight, and yeah, I feel like times are hard now. So like, yeah, everyone be nice to each other and whatnot.
Well said. Thanks, Kaitlyn Sage. Welcome back anytime. And thanks for all the work that you do in our community, by the way, too. And last but certainly not least, Court.
Hello. Sorry, I'm blinking a little. Hi, I'm Court. Let's see. I again want to say how grateful I am to be invited into these panel discussions by Jordan, and all of that. I would love to continue doing these more. I'm trying to get my foot back into recording again. Basically, let's see. I host a podcast, with Kate, and it's called the Bad Bitch Segment, and you can listen to it on pretty much all the platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Patreon, Castbox. Yeah, you can go to our link tree to find that. But basically, it's a history and pop culture podcast where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of history and pop culture's baddest bitches. And we try to share, stories of empowering women and femme-focused stories for the most part. And LGBTQ, I can't talk. But yeah, the podcast is currently on hiatus while I, try to work through some things like learning a new sound system and all that. But yeah, so you can go to the Bad Bitch segment and Instagram, and that's pretty much all we have right now when it comes to social media, because I hate social media.
Yeah.
So
Still always love your meme drops though.
Yeah, I still I do my meme drops. Those are mostly on my personal account. That's XX Hey It's Court XX on Instagram. And yeah, please follow us. I recently deleted our entire catalog from everything, so we don't have any more followers or statistics, and it's sad.
Yeah, definitely listen to her podcast. I've learned a lot about women from history. And actually, Bad Bitch segment is part of the Anti-Capitalist Podcast Network as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
We have a string of podcasts and also just anti-capitalist content creators. If you're interested in learning more about that, you can go to our website or just
Hell yeah.
shoot me a DM on Instagram. It's probably the easiest way at 805 Uncensored Pod. Just want to say thank you all for being here again, taking time out of your busy schedules and to discuss these really important issues. I think my listeners will really appreciate it. And just thank you from the bottom of my heart. I hope, as far as the listeners go, you all got something out of this. Hope everyone has good night, morning, evening, wherever you're listening in the world. Stay safe out there. Free Palestine. The revolution is you. And fight the state. Stay educated. Don't give in.
Yeah.
Don't give in to the status quo. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, guys.